Thank you for listening to the Mentor Project, where we discuss marketing, SEO, how to go full-time in your business, and so much more. Here's your host, Nicole Bruce.
Hi guys, it's Nicole here, and thank you so much for joining me today. I'm super excited because we have Erica Quigley, who is an expert at optimizing your pricing and packages to meet your financial goals. She works as a management consultant in growing businesses and even helping businesses meet those financial goals when they first start up. One thing that we've talked a lot about in the past is how to create and meet your CODB, or cost of doing business, to best grow your business, meeting clients' needs, and valuing your time at the same time. Today, we're going to greatly expand on that topic, so I'm super excited. Erica, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So before we start, go ahead and just tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. So I am ex-corporate. I was in the corporate world for almost 12 years, where I ran different sized teams. I helped run global operations, and I was in management. And my last position was as a director. And I last year left to do the same sort of thing where I was growing, that I was helping big businesses grow, but do that same sort of thing for smaller businesses. So I help them create strong foundations so that they can grow their business revenue.
So as far as everything goes for the actual business, you help people start up and grow, right?
I do more focus on people who already have a business in place but need to figure out how they get to that next level.
Okay.
Because a lot of what I see is the business owner they get so busy with the day-to-day tasks that they have all of these great ideas of where they strategically want to be in a year or 5 years, but the day-to-day just overcomes them, and they never get to take any actual action steps to getting out of that and growing themselves strategically. So that's where my sweet spot is at.
Okay, perfect. So let's go ahead and jump into that. And that's something that's super important for business owners. I think a lot of us have trouble managing our time and just figuring out how to make our thoughts into actions. You know, a lot of entrepreneurs just have a never ending brain stream. And once it kind of gets to that point, it's hard to say, okay, I first need to do this to get to this to do
Mm-hmm.
this, and actually turn that entire to-do list or the brainstorming sheet into actual
Right.
actions. So let's go ahead and start out with just talking about how you help people value their time and really start growing to have more time to do what they need to do rather than just looking at that to-do list.
Absolutely. Now, I used to be in the camp of that if you were hustling day and night and you were staying up all night, that you must have been a really hard worker. And so that was how I lived my corporate career. And then funny thing happened, right? Like all those years of not sleeping really catches up with you. And I my story is I ended up in the hospital, and I needed to make a
Oh no.
decision, and is this really the life that I want? And that's when I realized that you can have people talk about this having it all, and it's they work so hard and they have a family, and they have a wonderful house. And when that happened to me, I realized having it all isn't what I thought it was. It's really valuing your time and spending your time how you want to. And so
Mhm.
when I started the business, I realized that that was the same sort of problem business owners were having, the same thing that I ran into in corporate. And
Mhm. Yeah.
it was when I looked at the problems that people were having, it was almost always because they were undervaluing their time. So, what I think is important to start with is I like to start with the end in mind. So, if in your ideal world, you're the business owner, you have control over the business. A lot of times people forget that they start their own business so they can have control, but
Mhm.
then they let they let all the activities of their business like control them. But
Yes.
they're in control of their business, and that means they're using that business to be like the vehicle to be in control of their life too.
Mhm.
Now, what I like to start with is how many hours do you actually want to be working? Like, I know that I want to be able to take my kids to a gymnastics class during the day. Or
Mhm.
on Thursday nights, I want to take my daughter to a dance class or something like that. So when I started, I outlined this is how many hours I ideally want to work each day. I know what my salary is that I want to make I'm still going to call it like my salary because I know what I was making before and I know I wanted to make more now. And
Right.
really, if you think about it that way and you just divide the amount of hours that or your salary by the amount of hours that you're planning to work, then that really brings you to your dollar per hour that you need to be charging. And I know that
Mhm.
a lot of business owners package things in like service packages and they might not be dollar per hour. And there's all these other activities that you have to do that you aren't billing for, right? So, right off the top, I think that it's important to note that when you do that type of exercise, 40% of your time, you're probably going to be spending on networking, doing administrative tasks, strategic things with your business. And then the other 60% of your time, what might be on actual client activities.
Right.
And when you do the math that way, obviously the dollar figure per hour goes up. But if you and this is when people see they'll see that and they'll be like, oh, I'm not worth that much. Well, guess what? You are, because you just that's how many hours you want to work. That's how the balance that you want. Then that's what you need to set for yourself. Otherwise, you just run yourself into the same problem where you overwhelm your time. You need to work, twice as many hours just to hit the salary that you wanted to hit for the year. And that's where you run into the burnout.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think even we have talked about kind of cost of doing business, and we've kind of focused more on expenses versus the time aspect. So I'm glad that we're going more into time today. But I know that when we first sit down and we figure out that cost of doing business, even if someone has been in business, for 2 or 3 years and they've just never sat down and actually figured that out,
Hmm.
it's absolutely terrifying to figure out and know what you're actually supposed to be charging per hour or per package, whichever method you go towards, but it's going to amount to the same thing. And just knowing that you're undervaluing yourself so much.
Yes. And the thing is, like, we do it to ourselves without thinking about it because we're just our worst critics. And
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
we just don't value our time enough. And even when you take that dollar figure and you put it into you have like you know what your dollar per hour is, right? But you package things as a service package. So I know
Hmm.
that you do photography, for example. You don't charge
Right.
people per the hour, but you have a package amount that you charge. And some
Hmm.
people don't know like how much time that package actually is to them. They don't think about like, well, I have to take the photographs of the clients and then I have to edit them and then I have to let them select their images and all of this back and forth that's included. It's not just the
Yes.
1 hour that you're taking the photos, you have all that other time in there too. So if you don't account for
Yep.
that in your pricing, then people start to get overwhelmed because they have to do more business than they thought they needed to do.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, how do you kind of get from that mindset of, okay, I've kind of figured out this overwhelming process of how much I should actually be charging? How do you kind of merge into that of actually making those packages and starting to charge those prices?
Well, I'm more analytical than emotional, if you can tell from my voice. So for me, the proof is in the numbers. I mean, when you
Mhm.
go through and do a projection, like if I work with a client and we do a projection on what they want their income to be and what they're charging now, and like I can literally put it into a spreadsheet and say, well, you're only going to make this much if you keep doing things this way. I mean, it's up
Mhm.
it's up to you, but here's the
Yeah.
projection. And like we talked about a little bit ago, the objection is always because they're undervaluing themselves and because they want to help people. And I get it. I feel the same way. I have a lot of experience in business, and yeah, when I started my own business, I just wanted to help people too. But I
Mhm.
can't do that if I'm not charging for my services, because otherwise I have to go get a job and then I don't have time to help people. So it's the
Mhm.
same thing that, like, they have to think about it that same way, that even though they're helping people and it's something they enjoy, they still deserve to be paid for their services. Otherwise, it's just not as valuable to both parties, honestly. I mean, people value things more when they pay you for it. I could give someone free advice and they nod their head and listen to me, but the same person could pay me a couple grand, like a different person could pay me a couple grand, and they're more invested in listening,
Yep.
than the one I
Yep,
gave for free.
absolutely. Yeah, and we talk about that a lot in the photography community. Just, when people are first starting out, they'll do free sessions, and a lot of people will go overboard with that. But it's just the fact that those people that are getting those free sessions, very, very rarely someone will actually be very thankful for that.
Mhm.
A lot of times people will just take it and run and just, they don't really value it too much. They're just like, oh, it was free, not a big deal. And you're losing out on that time. You can't get your time back.
Right.
So you need to really figure out what you need to be charging. And yes, you want to help people, but like you said, they absolutely value your time better. They value your talents better when you're actually charging them.
Yes, for sure.
So, one of the things that I think a lot of people will have on their mind is what if their pricing just doesn't fit in? And I know you were talking about that a little bit before we started recording and just talking about how some people will start doubting themselves, which is absolutely true. So, what is your answer to that question?
If it seems wildly out of line, then there's a couple of different reasons. The first is, like we said, they just really aren't valuing themselves correctly. And I mean, you could tell that by, for example, if we could say on this photography example, like you were talking about, yes, there is a lot of photographers, but it doesn't matter if you feel like the market is saturated, because sometimes people say that, well, there's so many photographers out there, they could choose anybody. They come to you because there's something about you that they're connecting with, and there's something about you that makes you unique. So
Yep.
there is value in that. And the other part of it could be, if someone thinks their pricing seems wildly out of line, then they're spending too much time on actually delivering on their services. Now, that could be they're spending too much time on administrative items that are rolling into that price. They're spending too much time maybe in the sales process trying to land a customer. And, I'm not talking just in photography terms anymore, but anyone who's
Right.
doing, their who is their own boss has to be involved in that sales process in some way,
Mhm.
or they're spending too much time executing the work with their clients. So let's say a coach maybe has a package where they charge a fee and it includes 2 meetings a month. Now, some things that I see are they get so everyone's so invested in their clients, right? And that's the way it should be. But there does need to be boundaries. Like if your packages are for 2 meetings a month, that doesn't mean you also take 5 phone calls, 5 30-minute phone calls during that time. And it doesn't
Mhm.
mean your meetings should be 4 hours long each time. And keeping an eye on that time that you're actually spending versus what you thought you would be spending, that's where things can start to get out of control and not line up with the way they thought it would be. And for that, I just recommend doing, like, literally just doing a time study, documenting your time and see how you're spending it so that you can make smarter decisions on how to spend your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of the issue I know I struggled with this too before I actually sat down and figured out, like, why am I actually working 8 hours a day? Like, I don't really have that much to do, but it's taking me forever. So, what my issue was, and I think this kind of goes with a lot of people, is we are so connected to everything, right? We use social media for marketing. So we're on social media because, maybe we'll use it for marketing, but hey, my friend messaged me and I have to message them back.
Mhm.
Or, maybe you have a client that texted you and okay, let's reply to that client. But hey, my friend texted me too. So let's reply to them.
Mhm.
And just between all of the different connections that we have with society, it just makes everything take longer because we get distracted, scrolling through Facebook or responding to friends and stuff like that. And once I completely shut off all of my technology when it's work time, I was only spending, 4 or 5 hours a day and not 8 hours a day
Yeah.
doing the same exact things.
Yes. Optimizing your time, definitely.
Yep, absolutely. So I think once we figure out that point of time and figure out how much time we're actually needing, we can kind of go from there and say, hey, this package actually takes me 10 hours instead of what I thought it was at like 5 hours. And then we can kind of optimize things from there. So let's kind of talk about how we kind of turn those packages into being an actual package that we offer people, how we actually start marketing those, how we start putting the efforts that we have made forward into saving time, optimizing
One thing
time.
I do want to touch on with that time is like that example you just gave was really good about how you might think you spend 5 hours on something but then you realize you spend 10 hours on it. Um
Mhm.
Knowing your cost per hour too can help you make decisions like if that 10 hours you really felt delivered the best thing to your client, then maybe it makes sense to outsource the part that isn't just something you can do, you know? As long as it follows your guidelines, I'm all for knowing what your bottom level price is, like what is the best use of your time. And if you can pay somebody to do part of it, that helps you deliver your product in less time. I'm all
Right.
for that. Yeah. If I have clients that do a price increase there after they do this time study and they look at their income goals and they see where they should be versus where they are, I really think that honesty with your clients is just the best policy. I connect better with people who, if they raise their prices and they say, look guys, you are used to me delivering a certain caliber of product, that's what makes you like me. In order for me to continue to do that, this is the price that I need to charge now. And
Mhm.
the people who like you and are really invested in you are going to be there with you for it. They want to support you. And yes, you'll have some people that fall off, but I know that you are really into like knowing that when you get into your niche, things open up for you. And
Right.
there's nothing wrong with again, people think that when they get down into the details like that and they begin to lose clients because maybe they raise their prices, that that's concerning for them. But it shouldn't be because you're attracting a different caliber of client. And most likely they're the ones that are going to be a better experience for you to work with anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really about just finding that niche. And even if it's, maybe you've worked with the same person for 5 years, but maybe they were just writing off your freebies or writing off your really low prices. And then you sit back and figure things out and you're supposed to be charging like triple, what you were charging. If they don't stick around, then they probably weren't meant to be there in the first place.
Yes.
And it's kind of unfortunate, I understand when people start feeling bad about, hey, I'm losing clients and, but if you were charging, let's say like $50 per hour and you had 10 clients before and now you're charging $100 an hour and you only have 5 clients, you still have the same amount of income.
Mhm.
And,
Yeah.
you know, you're not reaching as many people, but when you first start out, you're not going to, reach 20 people. You got to start at 5 people and then grow from there.
Hmm.
So having that higher income per hour just gives you the ability to find more people to reach because you're going to have more time now. And it also gives you more time to work on your business and grow, and helps you grow personally too.
Yeah, and when you're not overwhelmed by having like all of this work to do and you give yourself that time to grow your business, it really gives space in your brain to make the different connections and think about strategy and how to execute it. And when you're overwhelmed, your brain just doesn't work like that as well, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the point that you made about sometimes we need to outsource. I don't know if it's hard for everyone. It's definitely hard for me.
Mm.
Just giving someone part of your business to work on, and you're like, are they going to treat it like I treat it? Are they going to love it like I love it? Do I want to pay someone for something that I could do myself? But in reality, if you have something that is just not getting done, it's on your to-do list and it's been on your to-do list for like 3 months because you just don't want to do it.
Yep. Yeah.
Sometimes it is just better hiring people out, helping you out in that aspect.
Right, because it's like, is it going to get done? Do you just want to get it done, or do you want to leave it on your to-do list forever because
Yep.
you're so worried about you doing it rather than someone else? Yeah.
Yeah. And then I know another thing that we talked about was software and how software can actually help us reduce time as well.
I love that. That's my favorite thing. In this age, do I sound old when I say stuff like that? In this day and age, there is a specific tool or program to do anything. And that is both good and bad because there's no one stop shop for you to look at to know what should I use for this task and how do I make these integrate together. And particularly for people who are in a creative field, that's just not something that we're used to doing, is to try to figure out like how to make your systems work together. That's why
Mhm.
I love doing that so much, because I like to be able to see business owners have consistent, repeatable processes and systems in place that can
Yep.
help remove administrative burden from them so they don't have to do things manually, but so they can always get the result that they want. And a lot of times it just takes talking out your process with someone. Like when I meet with my business owners and we walk through their business, I talk about where are their frustrations and what irritates them, what do they feel like. Everyone does this different. Nobody does the right thing, like if they have employees, you know?
Mhm.
And a lot, I wouldn't say a lot of time, but like almost all of the time, there is some sort of program or software or tool or whatever you want to call it that you can implement to standardize things or make things work automatically. And I
Yeah.
love learning about the different industries and finding the best tool in each area.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that I've utilized so much in my own business as well. I have software that does automatic workflows. So that will send the invoices, send the contracts, send all the reminder emails and all the information emails and questionnaires and stuff like that that I need in my photography business.
Mhm.
And that's stuff that we think about as, oh, I just have to send this email. It'll take 5 minutes. But most wedding photographers take 30 to 40 clients a year. We'll multiply that times 5 minutes. That's some time that you can
Yeah.
be saving. And it adds up to be quite a lot once you kind of just sit back and actually take a look at how much time you're spending just sending one email, but to 40 people.
Yeah, and those are the overwhelming things too, just those little things. That's what ends up overwhelming people, because there are those little tasks that sit in your mind that you're like, "Oh, I got to do this when I get back. I got to do this."
Hmm.
And then you can't focus on being present because you have all those little to-do items hanging out there in your brain.
Yep. Or if you're like me, you can't fall asleep at night.
Right. That too.
You just have to write a to-do list to fall asleep at night.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so Software and outsourcing are definitely good ways to help reduce time. Do you have any other pointers for how we can reduce time to make our time more efficient?
Well, I do want to touch on one thing here, which is something that I've seen when people make their time more efficient. I've seen a lot of times they feel guilty about continuing to charge their prices
Mhm.
because they feel like, well, it's not taking me as much time anymore and I should pass that savings along. And the
Yeah.
example I like to use there is if you work with a corporation and they outsource their project to India or something, do you think they're
Mhm.
passing along that savings to you? No, they did it
No.
because it was good for their bottom line. Think about yourself the same way. In case there is anybody on the phone who thinks, well, when I save this time, then I can just reduce my prices back down. Um,
Yeah.
no, the whole point is that these are efficiencies that you figure out as you go along, and
Mhm.
that helps you create a better business. As far as other techniques, I would say trying to remain focused, keeping
Mhm. Definitely.
activities that you do the same days. Like for example, again, we talked about social media earlier, but that is something that can definitely suck me in too. So
Mhm.
I have on my calendars, like on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings are the mornings when I go in and I check all my notifications, to clear them all out, because I'm afraid if that was something that I did every time they popped up, I would lose a lot of minutes in my day.
Yeah,
And just
definitely.
keeping regular, like, I don't want to sound like this is overboard or anything. I just have a simple checklist for each day of the week: Monday tasks, Tuesday tasks.
Mhm.
And that just helps so that I know where I'm starting out in the morning. I'm not sitting down at my computer and wondering, oh, I have so much to do. What do I start on? Start with my checklist. I don't just go on Facebook and clear my notifications. I do my Monday activities. And if I had on my calendar that I complete work for a certain client on Monday, then that's the work that I do. And I just stay focused and don't let yourself get carried away with everything else. Keep time on your calendar definitely for strategic items, but
Yeah.
don't let that distract you either. I think it's important to time block out for that sort of thing, like have a specific afternoon where you're going to do that and not having to switch back and forth from different tasks so that you can really focus.
Yeah. And not to jump around, but kind of going back to where you were talking about how people shouldn't lower prices when they become more efficient. If you're hiring someone for outsourcing, or you found a software that reduces your time, you actually can't really lower prices because you're going to have to pay for those things.
Thank you.
You know,
Yes.
those are just
Yes.
more expenses.
Absolutely.
So,
Thank you for pointing that out. You're right.
yeah. So it might take you less time, but hey, now you have this extra bill of this software, and software can get pretty expensive.
Mhm.
Um, and or you're paying this excellent person for outsourcing, and really good help isn't exactly cheap. I mean, you're going to pay for what you get.
Mhm.
And so it's just really important to keep your expenses in mind too.
Yes, thank you. That's an excellent point to make.
Is there anything that we haven't covered that you kind of want to point out or summarize here?
I want to say that remember that the point of having your own business is to be in control, is to work for yourself, is to do
Mhm.
something you enjoy. It's the vehicle to give you the life that you want. That means, I know you will totally agree with me, Nicole, because your story is the same sort of thing where it's like, why would I want to live anything else than an absolutely extraordinary life that I want to live?
Mhm.
And
Yep.
people who own their own business, they're already a step ahead of everybody else, because you have
Absolutely.
that flexibility and that control over the vehicle to live that life. Yeah.
And the mindset too. Yeah. One of the things that I think a lot of people don't understand is that even when you're starting your business, you're not going to be an overnight success right away. You're not going to automatically just earn six figures in your first month, or be on track to six figures or whatever. And all of these ads where you're going to make $1 million your first year. I mean, that doesn't define success, like you said
Hmm.
in the very beginning of the episode. You can have a nice car and a nice house and stuff like that, but maybe you're working all the time, and maybe you're not charging enough to where you actually get free time, or to where you're doing everything yourself when you should be outsourcing.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things people misunderstand is when they're first starting out, it's not necessarily going to be a smooth process, but they need to know that just having that idea of, hey, I want to start a business, that is worlds ahead of so many people, because most people won't even have that idea, and most people definitely wouldn't act on that idea.
Yes.
So, maybe you quit your full-time job to start running your business and it's not going smoothly at first. That's super normal. Hey, you had that idea to quit your full-time job and pursue this, and that's not normal. Like, a lot of people wouldn't do that.
Hmm.
So even if, this episode is kind of an eye opener of, hey, maybe I'm not charging enough. Hey, maybe I need to look over this and fix things, and it's going to be really overwhelming. You're already in the right place if you're thinking that you want to have your own business and you're kind of trying to do research, or if you're even listening to this episode and researching how to do this properly.
Especially from like the world that I came from to the world that I'm living in now. It's amazing how your environment and the people you surround yourself with really impacts the way you see things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, thank you so much for just going through how to price ourselves so that we're not overwhelmed, but we're making the right amount per hour, and how to make sure that we're not distracted during those hours of time, and how to really optimize all of our pricing, optimize our business, and really optimize our life too.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for having me. I enjoy talking about this topic.
Yes, I do too. I could talk about it all day. So, to kind of come to a close, we always like asking some fun questions to our guests just to get to know you a little bit better personally.
Yes.
My first question, which is my favorite, what is your favorite ice cream?
It is a chocolate chip cookie dough.
Oh, yes, that is always a good one.
Yes.
Yes. There's actually a local creamery that we go to that hand makes their ice cream. And instead of chocolate chip cookie dough, they have like triple cookie dough.
Oh,
It's like brownie cookie dough, cake cookie dough, and then like regular cookie dough.
that sounds
Oh
good.
gosh, it's life changing.
You're in Tennessee, right? I have to
Yes,
I have to take a trip.
travel. All right, and then pancakes or waffles?
Definitely waffles, except that then I have to take the waffle iron out of the cabinet.
Yes.
So I do end up eating pancakes more than waffles, but waffles win every time, you know?
Yeah, yeah, I feel that. I always want waffles, and then I look at like the process I have to go through, and I'm like, All right, cats or dogs?
Just a little more on the dogs on that one, but almost
Okay.
even. A little more
All
dogs.
right. Do you have any?
I have yes, it goes 3 cats, 2 dogs, 2 kids, 1 husband. That's the
Oh,
house.
okay. All right. I've got a full house. All right, last one, Chipotle or Chick-fil-A?
Chick-fil-A.
Oh, heck yeah. That's my girl. All right. All right. So I know we just started in on your business coaching talents, and each one of us obviously have a different business and a different personal plan. So how can we find you?
So on Facebook and Instagram, I'm at Erica Q Biz, EricaqBiz, like business but biz. And
Mhm.
my website is ericaq.com, and I'm on LinkedIn. But on LinkedIn it's just Erica Q.
Okay. All right. And for any of you that are listening on the actual website, there will be links below for you guys as well. But thank you again for coming on the show today, Erica.
Thank you. I had a lot of fun. Thank you for talking.
Yes, absolutely. And again, thank you to all of our listeners as always. See you guys next week. Thank you for listening to The Mentor Project with Nicole Bruce. Tune in next time for more on marketing, SEO, and going full-time as a creative.